I came back to consciousness slowly, as if swimming upward through fog. My throat was dry, my chest tight. Above me, a ceiling, white, motionless, too still to feel safe. I blinked. Machines beeped beside me, steady, impersonal. I smelled antiseptic, the kind that tells you you're in a place meant for endings. I tried to turn my head, but it felt heavy, too heavy. Then I heard it, a voice, my daughter's voice. But it wasn't the voice of worry or grief. It was clipped, controlled. Almost professional. She can still hold a pen, right? Just get her to sign before the meds wear off. Silence. Then rustling, a folder being opened, footsteps, a man clearing his throat, a chair dragging closer to my bedside. I tried to move, to lift a finger, anything, nothing. Then I felt it, something pressed into my hand, thin, familiar, a pen. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or if I was already gone. Then I heard Malcolm, my son. His voice was firm, like he was managing a transaction, not sitting beside his mother. "We need her signature now. She's conscious. It's legal." Then Rachel, my quiet one, she whispered near my ear, "Just sign it, Mom. You don't have to worry about anything ever again." Her words were soft, but there was no warmth, only intent. My hand trembled. I wanted to pull away. I couldn't. My eyes were open, but no one looked into them. They weren't checking if I was okay. They were waiting for ink. They hadn't brought flowers. They hadn't brought hope. They brought a notary and a plan. They came to finish something, to take something. While I was still here, still breathing, I was their mother. But in that moment, I was just an obstacle. I looked at them not with affection, not with fear, but with a quiet, piercing clarity I never expected to feel. Malcolm, my firstborn, pacing, eyes on his phone, not on me. Already thinking 10 steps ahead, as if I were a contract to be closed, not a woman lying in a hospital bed. Heather, her tone sugary, too polished. She always knew how to fake concern when it served her. Her hand on mine felt like pressure, not comfort. And Rachel, my gentle one, the one who used to cry when the tomatoes in the garden withered, she didn't even look me in the eye. She whispered words like they were kind, but they weren't. In that moment, I didn't see children. I saw shadows in familiar shapes. I saw ambition, calculation, and silence that screamed betrayal. They weren't mourning me. They were strategizing. And something in me broke. Not from pain, but from recognition. I was no longer their mother. I was an estate. It started as a flutter in the chest. Nothing dramatic, nothing anyone else would notice. Just a brief tightness, like someone pressing a thumb gently between my ribs. I brushed it off. Too many deadlines. Too many people who needed something from me. Too many excuses to stay busy. But then it came again, in the middle of folding laundry, of pouring tea, of walking the garden path I'd walked 1,000 times. Each time, it lasted longer. And each time, I told myself, "You're just tired. It's the weather. Don't be dramatic." But deep down, I knew. Something was shifting. It wasn't just my body slowing down. It was something inside me bracing for impact. I found myself pausing halfway up the stairs, leaning a little harder on the rail, sitting longer than I meant to at the kitchen table. I felt like a clock losing minutes I hadn't given permission to lose. Even my breathing changed, shallower, shorter, each inhale a little more fragile than the last. And yet, I said nothing. Not to Malcolm, not to Heather, not to Rachel. I didn't trust what they'd do with that knowledge. So I carried the truth alone, like a sealed envelope pressed against my chest, one I didn't want opened until I was ready. Because when a woman has lived long enough, she knows when the storm is coming. And this one had my name on it. It didn't happen all at once. It happened in whispers, in midnight thoughts, in small moments of stillness when no one was watching. I began drafting the paperwork 3 weeks before the ICU. There was no grand announcement. No conversation over tea, no legal meeting with the children present, because this wasn't something I needed their permission for. This was something I needed to protect from them. I named it Widow's Wings, a foundation, not a business. A home for grieving women built on more than bricks, built on the years I gave away and the strength I rebuilt from scratch. I transferred every asset: Braddock Retreats, the land, the endowment fund, my shares. Even the house I had lived in for over 20 years, not a single piece of it had my name anymore. I signed the documents alone, with my attorney, and 2 quiet witnesses who never asked why, because women like me don't owe anyone explanations. I printed the papers, folded them neatly, placed them in a fireproof folder under the printer drawer, the same drawer where I kept photos of my late husband and the last letter he ever wrote to me. I told no one, not Heather, not Malcolm, not Rachel. Because if I spoke the truth out loud, I feared they'd rip it from my hands before I could even finish the sentence. So I didn't speak. I acted. And when the storm came, when they showed up in that hospital room with a pen, they had no idea. I had already walked away from what they came to steal. Belinda never pried. She never pushed, never questioned. She noticed things the others missed. How I gripped the railing a little harder every week. How my breathing caught after just a short walk across the garden. How I lingered longer at the edge of staff meetings quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I was running out of air. One morning, she knocked softly on the door to my office. She didn't sit. She didn't speak right away. She just stood there, hands folded in front of her eyes, steady. And then she said one sentence: "It's time for you to rest." That was it. Not a demand, not a diagnosis, just truth. She didn't say it like a warning. She said it like a kindness. And then after a moment, "And it's time for you to be protected too." I didn't cry, but something inside me loosened, because Belinda wasn't like my children. She didn't want what I had. She just wanted me to have peace. And that day, without knowing it, she gave me permission to stop holding everything up, to stop pretending I was made of steel, and to quietly begin handing the reins over to something bigger than me. The pen felt heavier than it should. It was nothing more than plastic and ink, but in that moment, it weighed more than everything I'd ever carried. Heather leaned in, her voice low, soft, almost loving. "Just sign it, Mom," she said. "It'll give you peace of mind." I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too dry for mockery. Peace. There was no peace in that room. Only calculation. Only pressure disguised as tenderness. Only strangers speaking to the shell of a woman they thought was already gone. My fingers, still weak, curled slightly around the pen. I could feel everyone watching, holding their breath. Rachel took a step closer. "You don't have to worry, Mom. We'll take care of everything." But that was the problem. They wanted to take everything. They didn't come with flowers. They came with a notary and a plan. And they assumed my silence meant surrender. But silence is not submission. I opened my fingers. Slowly. The pen slipped. It hit the blanket with a dull sound like a small death no one expected. Heather flinched. Rachel bent down to pick it up. Malcolm muttered under his breath and walked out. I said nothing, because saying nothing right then was louder than anything I could have screamed. I lay still, not because I was too weak to move, but because I needed to hear what they'd say when they thought I wasn't listening. The room was quiet, but not gentle. It was the kind of silence that presses into your chest like a weight you can't shake off. Then Malcolm spoke. Low, sharp, transactional. "All we need is the signature," he said to the notary, like he was closing escrow, not speaking beside his mother's bed. Not, "Is she okay?" Not, "Should we wait?" Just, "Get it signed." Rachel didn't object. Heather didn't pause. I felt the air shift from concern to conquest. They weren't trying to comfort me. They were managing an asset. I wasn't their mother in that moment. I was a document waiting for ink. And I heard everything, every word, every glance, every breath held in anticipation, as if I was just a final box to check. They thought I'd forget. They thought I was too far gone to remember. But I did. I remembered every word. And later, I would make sure the right people remembered too. I didn't speak. Not when Heather adjusted the blanket. Not when Malcolm paced near the door. Not when Rachel gently pressed the pen back into my hand. I just stayed still. Let them think I was fading. Let them believe I had no fight left. Because that's what they needed to believe. But inside, I was wide awake. Every word, every whisper, every flick of their eyes toward the notary, every lie masked as concern, I stored it, like timestamps, like evidence, like a case building in my mind while they mistook my stillness for surrender. I wasn't gone. I was documenting. My fingers didn't sign, but my mind wrote everything down. They came for ownership. They came for legacy. They came for what I spent a lifetime building. And they thought they could take it with a smile, a soft voice, a pen pressed into a weak hand. They were wrong. They brought documents. I brought memory. The hospital discharged me with a heart monitor and a warning to take it slow. But no one warned me about what was already waiting at home. The second day back, Belinda knocked softly on my front door. She wasn't smiling. In her hand, a folded sticky note from the receptionist at Braddock Retreats. Malcolm had called, not to check on me, not to welcome me back, not to ask if I needed anything. He called to inform, to declare, to assume. He told the front desk, I'll be stepping in as interim director now that my mother's unwell. Just like that. No permission, no conversation, no shame. He even said I had verbally consented to the transition last month. A lie. Blunt, bold, delivered with the confidence of a man who had always been told yes. I sat in my kitchen chair, heart still tender from surgery, staring at that note like it was an eviction letter from my own life. Belinda didn't speak. She didn't need to. She placed the note down on the table and said only, he thinks you're still too weak to stop him. I didn't answer, but my silence this time wasn't surrender. It was the sound of strategy. That night, I didn't panic. I brewed tea, logged in, opened the folder marked Widow's Wings Final Transfer. Every document was there, dated, signed, witnessed. The nonprofit was legal, active, and irrevocable. I opened a new email draft to board at Braddock Retreats, subject, urgent clarification, legal structure. I kept it brief. No member of my immediate family holds any authority over Braddock Retreats, its operations, assets, or partnerships. All permissions must be routed through the nonprofit board. This structure is legal binding and final. I attached the signed transfer agreement, the trust certificate, the time-stamped hospital log I'd written the night Malcolm brought the notary, a voice memo from that day, Rachel whispering by my ear. Then I uploaded every file to an encrypted cloud folder. Shared access with 2 lawyers and Belinda. That was Lock 1, the board. Lock 2, legal trail. Lock 3, memory, my own, the one they underestimated most. I saved the email as PDF, printed a copy, sealed it in an envelope marked, in case of incapacity. Then I sat back. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't reacting. I was reclaiming. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Thick envelope, law firm seal, return address I recognized, Malcolm's attorney. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside, but I did anyway. Inside a formal petition filed in family court, they were suing me. Not for money, not for the house, for control. Full legal guardianship over my person, my decisions, my estate. Their reason I was, in their words, no longer of sound mind. I read the sentence 3 times, and each time my hands got steadier. Attached were affidavits. Heather had signed. Rachel, too. They called it love, intervention, necessary protection. But it wasn't any of those things. It was fear because they'd lost control. It was entitlement because I had said no. It was retaliation because I dared to own my life again. But they didn't know. I was ready. The documents were already archived, the transfer legal and timestamped, the voice memos, the hospital logs, the cloud backups, the envelope marked "in case of incapacity." I didn't crumble, I didn't cry. I called my attorney and said 6 words. They think I'm confused. Good. The courtroom was full. 3 rows behind me, strangers. 3 rows in front, my children. Not one of them could meet my eyes. The judge adjusted his glasses, looked first to their attorney. They spoke in rehearsed tones. Her decision-making has deteriorated. She gave away millions to a charity no one controls. We're just trying to protect our mother. Then my attorney stood. No theatrics, no volume, just truth. Your Honor, Mrs. Evelyn Braddock does not need protection from herself, but from the people who claim to love her. He handed the judge a folder. Inside, ICU medical logs. The time-stamped footage Rachel whispering by my hospital bed. Audio, Malcolm saying, "Just sign before it's too late." And my journal, every entry from the night they came. Handwriting analysis confirming my full cognition. The judge flipped through the documents, paused, raised an eyebrow, then said, "This isn't guardianship. This is coercion in disguise." I looked across the room. Heather's face turned pale. Rachel looked down. Malcolm clenched his fists. I didn't gloat, but I did feel clean. For the first time, a court had said it out loud. You are not the one who failed your family. They failed you. The judge leaned forward. His fingers tapped the file. The room, frozen. No rustling, no whispers. Just the air, holding its breath. Then came the sentence. Petition for guardianship is denied. 1. Breath. 2. Further, this court is launching an investigation into attempted financial manipulation and undue influence. Heather gasped. Malcolm stood and was told to sit back down. Rachel's hands began to shake. But Evelyn, she didn't blink. No celebration, no vengeance, only stillness. The gavel came down. One sound. But for Evelyn, it was the final page of a chapter she never asked to write. She rose, not to speak, but to leave, because justice had already spoken louder than any word she could say, and now she was ready for the next chapter, the one she would write on her terms. No invitation was sent to Heather, or Malcolm, or Rachel. The gates of Braddock Retreats opened wide, but not for them. Instead, women arrived holding tiny hands, carrying diaper bags, or walking alone in worn heels. Single mothers, war widows, burnt-out teachers. Women once told, "You don't belong." But here they did. Evelyn stood at the garden arch, not with a speech, but with open arms. One guest whispered, "Why us?" Evelyn smiled, "Because the world said you weren't enough, and I've spent my life proving it wrong." No champagne, no orchestra, just laughter from the fountain, kids running across the grass, and candles lit, one for each story once silenced. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a declaration. The legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's who you choose to rise with. No fanfare, no speeches, just tables, simple wooden and full of stories. Each plate had a folded napkin, and tucked inside, a single card. Not printed, not typed, handwritten, by Evelyn. Each one with the same 5 words. You belong here, always. A woman unfolded hers. Her lips trembled. She pressed it to her chest. Another whispered, "No one's ever said that to me before." Some began to cry. Others just sat in silence, letting the words sink deep. And slowly, as if choreographed by something older than music, they stood. No cheers, no applause, just the sound of chairs gently sliding back and the soft rhythm of gratitude in every breath. Because for the first time, they weren't guests. They were home. He arrived uninvited, of course, in a sharp suit, with practiced sorrow on his face. Malcolm stood outside the gates of Braddock Retreats, looking like a man who had just remembered he had a mother. Evelyn didn't come out. She watched from the upstairs window. He shouted her name once, then again softer. A staff member approached. "Sir, this gathering is private." Malcolm scoffed, then said with something between pity and threat, "She's really going to die with nothing left for us, huh?" Evelyn turned away from the window, walked slowly down the stairs, opened the door just far enough for her voice to carry, and she said with calm fire, "That's the point." Then closed the door and kept walking, not away from him, but toward peace. It was left on the garden bench. No envelope, no stamp, just a folded piece of paper slightly crumpled. No signature. Evelyn picked it up like it was fragile, as if it might vanish in her hands. She unfolded it, recognized the handwriting instantly. "I don't understand, but I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation, no plea, no name. Just 7 words, and a silence that followed. Evelyn sat down, read it once more. She didn't cry, she didn't forgive, but something inside her finally exhaled. It didn't fix the past, it didn't rebuild trust, but for the first time in years, it didn't hurt anymore. She placed the paper on her lap, looked out over the retreat grounds, and whispered, "That's enough." The house was quiet. Not silent with sadness, but full of peace. Evelyn sat at her desk. Sunlight spilled across the floor like warm silk. She opened her journal, not to record what had happened, but to reclaim it. She flipped to the last page, and with a calm, steady hand, she wrote, "They tried to write the ending for me, but this story is still mine." She closed the book. No dramatic music, no applause. Just the creak of the chair and the exhale of someone who had just reclaimed her name. Out the window, the garden was alive, full of the people she had chosen, people who weren't related by blood, but by heart. This was her final chapter, written not in anger, but in absolute clarity. She wasn't celebrating. There were no victory speeches, no headlines, no revenge. Just a woman, 69 years old, sitting alone on the porch with a cup of tea. No longer someone's mother, no longer a target, no longer trapped in guilt, duty, or fear. Evelyn looked up at the sky, watched a bird land on the edge of the fence, and she smiled. Not because she won, not because they lost, but because she was finally free. Free from expectations, free from needing permission, free from rewriting the past. She had told her story, not the one others tried to force on her, but the one she finally chose for herself. And in that moment, with nothing to prove, no one to answer to, she felt peace. Not silence, not emptiness, just peace. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to say enough. Not everyone who shares your blood deserves a place in your story. There are moments when setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's the deepest act of self-respect. Evelyn didn't win with rage. She won with clarity, quiet strength, and choosing peace over chaos. And that lesson, it's for all of us. Live your life in a way that when it ends, you're the one holding the pen. If this story moved you, if you believe in justice, dignity, and personal freedom, subscribe to Whispers of Life. We tell the stories no one dares to tell. And here, you're not just a viewer, you're part of the awakening.